Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, dear students. Today we'll start our next chapter that is associated with international financial system. So far, we have discussed the foreign exchange market and what are the factors which can influence the short-term and long-term exchange rate, and we have discussed spot rate and many other aspects of exchange market or foreign exchange market. The international financial system is actually a system in which we can learn the role of central bank of our country to increase or decrease or make certain intervention in the determination of foreign exchange rate, because in the current scenario when we have a flexible exchange rate, there are continuous movement in the exchange rate, and these exchange rate move on daily basis, and which had an impact on the economy. So in order to have its impact positive, or in order to control this exchange rate, the central bank of the country can intervene, and they can take certain step by buying and selling the currency in order to make necessary changes in the exchange rate. Intervention in the foreign exchange market, as I have discussed in the previous slide, that the foreign exchange market is not free from any kind of intervention, as at one end we have said that it is an over-the-counter market, and it is actually a very efficient market in which all the necessary information which is actually available publicly are incorporated in the prices or in the exchange rates. But this foreign exchange market is not free from any kind of intervention, because every government is working for the betterment of their economy, and in order to make this change, or in order to make it favorable for themselves, they can intervene in this foreign exchange market for necessary changes. Like foreign exchange intervention occur when the central bank, what is actually a central bank? Bank is the head bank of any country, and they'll regulate the monetary policy and many other thing. And one of the major function of central bank is that they are custodian of foreign exchange reserve, and and many other aspects are there. Central bank plays many other role, like regulating the commercial banks and all those things, or credit policy of the country. So foreign exchange intervention occurs when the central bank of a country engage in international transactions, and this international transaction are being done because they want to influence the exchange rate of their country, as there is continuous movement in the exchange rates. So they want to influence this exchange rate in on their side, because they want a positive effect of these exchange rate on their country. So the first step is to understand the impact on the monetary base and the money supply when central bank intervenes in the foreign exchange market, because as we have discussed, that foreign exchange, or the intervention of central bank is done in order to influence the monetary base or the monetary supply of the country, of the currency of the country. So these first of all, we see that international reserve, which refers to a central bank's holding of a foreign currency, because the central bank is a custodian of foreign currency reserve. So they hold all the foreign currency reserve of the country, and with the help of these international reserve, they can make this intervention by adopting sterilized or unsterilized interventions. We will discuss these type of intervention in the next slides. Now, with the help of this example, we can understand that how the intervention of central bank can impact the monetary base or the supply of money. With this example, we can suppose that Fed is actually the central bank of US. It decided that they want to sell $1 billion of their foreign currency, foreign asset in exchange for $1 billion of US currency. So this transaction is conducted at foreign exchange desk at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. So the Fed's purchase dollars has two effects. First, it reduces the Fed's holding of international reserve by $1 million. As they have sell these reserves, therefore their international reserve would be declined by $1 million. And the second impact was that as the this Fed has purchase of currency, it remove it from the hands of the public, and currency in circulation falls by $1 million. And this can be seen with the help of this T account, in which you can see that assets at the asset side we have foreign assets, and these are foreign assets, and these are also called as international reserves, and they have sold these assets for 1 million. So this asset side would be decreased by 1 million, and they have purchased they have also purchased their their own currency, and which has removed this currency in circulation, and it has come in the hands of the Fed or the central bank. So as we know that the monetary base is made up of the currency in circulation plus the reserve. This decline in currency implies that monetary base has fallen by $1 million, and this case we can decrease our monetary base by selling our reserve, and this is one of the intervention of your central bank. In this case, we can suppose that the central bank wants to sell 1 billion in a foreign exchange in exchange for a check written on domestic bank. Like a foreign asset would be sold, but deposit with the Fed would also decrease by $1. In this case, actually the outcome of sale of a foreign asset and the um, purchase of dollar deposit is at $1 million decline in reserve as before, a $1 million decline in the monetary base because reserve are also a component of the monetary base. We can now see that the outcome for the monetary base is exactly the same when a central bank sells foreign asset to purchase domestic bank deposit or domestic currency. This is why when we say that a central bank has purchased its domestic currency, we do not have to distinguish whether it actually purchased currency or bank deposits dominated in the domestic currency. We have thus reached an important conclusion, and this conclusion is that a central bank's purchase of domestic currency and corresponding sale of foreign asset in the foreign exchange market leads to an equal decline in its international reserve and the monetary base. Now, if we look at this, the transaction which has been done in the previous slides, if we take the opposite of that, like the opposite is true if the transaction is reversed, as in that case we have sold our foreign deposits, and we have we have actually based upon that we have purchased our domestic currency. So a central bank sale of domestic currency and corresponding purchase of foreign currency leads to an equal increase in its international reserve and the monetary base. Now in this case, the second transaction that we are discussing here today is that now we will see the transaction in reverse. In the previous transaction, we have sold our foreign reserve and we have purchased our domestic currency, or we have issued a check of foreign currency. So in that case, we actually we have in that case we have sold our domestic currency, and this currency, when we sold this currency, it comes in the hands of the general public, and it have increased the money supply or the monetary base. On the other hand, we will purchase our foreign currency, which can increase our international reserves, and both would be increased when the sale of domestic currency, with the sale of domestic currency and purchase of foreign currency, our international reserve will be increased, and also our monetary base would also be increased. So the same would be true when we sell our foreign international reserve and purchase our domestic currency. In that case, international reserve decline and the monetary base also decline. But in this transaction, when we have purchased foreign currency assets, in which will increase our international reserve, and we have sold our domestic currency, which comes into the monetary base, or it comes into the circulation. As we are discussing the intervention of a central bank and how this intervention took place, but it's very important that we should understand that how this whole process took place, because you cannot this process actually has a long term implication, and the country or the central bank can not haphazardly take this action. First of all, you have to understand that the main decision, or is the main process, or which is actually has to be initiated, that is that we have to get US Treasury involved, because US Treasury is involved in the policy making, and they will decide that whether we could intervene in the foreign currency market or not. And the decision of intervention would be jointly be taken by the US Treasury and the federal the central banks or Feds, FOMC, that is the Federal Open Market Committee, that and they actually decide that whether we should intervene or not. This occurs through a variety of conference calls during the day between the Treasury, the Board of Governors, and the New York Fed. So all these people are involved in that, and they make long conference calls and discuss that what should be the appropriate time and what type of measure they should take in order to intervene in this system. So it's not an random decision. This is a very careful decision, which is being done by the collaboration of major stakeholders, and with the major policy makers and regulatory bodies, and the whole discussion would be done between these, and after that they'll start to initiate any kind of intervention, or this is actually dependent upon their decision, that whether they will go for intervention or they will not go for intervention, and what type of intervention they'll pursue in that market. Now, it's important to understand that the actual conduct of foreign exchange intervention is the responsibility of foreign exchange desk at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, which is right next to the open market desk. And once they decide that now they want to intervene, the manager of the foreign exchange operation at the New York Fed supervise all the trades and analyze who follows the departments in foreign exchange markets. And every morning at 7:30, a trader on the staff who has arrived at New York Feds in the pre-dawn hours speaks on telephone with counterpart at the US Treasury, and provides an update of an overnight activity to oversee financial and foreign exchange markets. And the later in the morning, at 9:30, the manager and his staff hold a conference call with the senior staff at the Board of Governors of Federal Reserve in Washington. And at 2:30, they have a second conference call, which is a joint briefing of officials or at the board and the Treasury. Although by statute the Treasury has the lead role in setting foreign exchange policy, it strives to reach a consensus among all three parties: the Treasury, the Board of Governors, and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. If they decide that a foreign exchange intervention is necessary that day, an unusual occurrence as a year may go by without a foreign exchange intervention, the manager instructs his traders to carry out the agreed on purchase or sale of foreign currency. Because funds for the exchange rate intervention are held separately by the Treasury in the Exchange Stabilization Fund, and the Federal Reserve, the manager and his or her staff are not trading the funds of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Rather, they act as an agent of the Treasury and FOMC in conducting these transactions. As part of their duties before every FOMC meeting, the staff helps prepare a lengthy document full of data for its members, other Reserve Bank president, and Treasury officials. It described development in the domestic foreign market and over the previous 5 or 6 weeks, a task that keep them specially busy right before the FOMC meeting. So this in turn, these reports are continuously developed in the meanwhile in order to be update about the development in the domestic and foreign markets. Now, as we have understand that how this purchase or sale transaction are being initiated and how this process would be conducted and who actually conduct this process, then the Fed still has a decision to make. That means that first the decision was that whether we should go for intervention or we should not go for intervention. Means once they decided to intervene, there are another other type of decision the Fed has to make, because when we have decided that we are going to intervene, there are two type of engagement which has to be conducted. Though two type of intervention which has to be conducted. Number one is unsterilized intervention, and second one is sterilized intervention. Both type of intervention has their impacts. So the central bank has to decide also upon these, that whether we go for that, whether they could go for a sterilized intervention or unsterilized intervention. We can understand what is sterilized and unsterilized intervention in the next slide, and with the help of certain examples. Like when we talk about unsterilized intervention, in an unsterilized intervention, if we see that with the Fed wants to buy foreign currency asset, and also they'll be increasing their monetary base by selling their foreign currency. It will increase both their international reserve and also their monetary base. We can see this analysis in the next example, but we can see that it has actually decreased the expected exchange rate. And why? Because there is increase in the monetary base, and when there is increase in the monetary base, it will actually increase the money supply, and when the money supply increases, it would actually impact on the price level, and which also increase the interest rate, and in all these factor will affect the exchange rate, which suggests that there would be decline in the exchange rate in the future. This can be explained with the help of this diagram. Like if you look at this diagram, there is a shift in demand of the quality, the demand of the US dollars, and their and also its relationship with exchange rate. So initially the sale of dollar increased the money supply, and demand shifts from D1 to D2. So demand will increase from D1 to D2 because the supply has increased. As the domestic interest rate return to original level, the demand curve shifts back to D3, and there is fluctuation in the exchange rates. So similar to previous chapter, as we have discussed that there would be exchange rate shooting as a sale of dollars and the consequent open market purchase of foreign asset increase the monetary base. The resulting rise is the money supply leads to a decline in domestic interest rate. Like, as obviously we know that when there is increase in money supply, it has a positive impact of interest rate, and which is increase, and a higher demand, and obviously it can impact the price levels in the long run, and the domestic prices will increase, which produces a lower expected future exchange rate, and this will actually headed towards decrease in the exchange rate, and the decline in both the expected appreciation of the dollar and the domestic interest rate lowers the relative expected return on dollar asset, shifting the demand curve leftward from D1 to D2. In short run, the equilibrium exchange rate falls from E1 to E2. In the long run, the interest rate rises back to its initial level and the demand curve shifts rightward to D3. The exchange rate rises from E2 to E3 in the long run. Whereas there is a decline in the exchange rate, but in the long run, the exchange rate would decline, or which there was a little decline in the exchange rate as compared to in the short run. Like this is actually the sterilized intervention. It is open as in this kind of intervention, the exchange rate, or there will be no change in the exchange rate or monetary price or the shift in the demand, because this actually at this asset side, the international reserve would be declined, but at the same time the government bond would be purchased. So there would be no change, and the liability side you will see no change in the reserve. So in this type of intervention, the international reserves would be remain the same. There would be 1 billion increase. There would be no change in the monetary base, and exchange rate remains still. There would be no change in the exchange rate, and there is no shift in the demand. So the first type of intervention that is called is unsterilized intervention. That is a type of intervention when government want to increase or decrease their exchange rate, they actually they use that kind of intervention. But when the government want to remain the exchange rate stabilized, and they don't want any changes in the exchange rates, so they'll go for sterilized intervention. Discuss the operations of a treasury and the role of treasury in developing the policy regarding the intervention, and then what is the actual operation in which both treasury, federal, the Fed, and different staff is associated in international financial exchange market intervention. Uh, this is the actually when we are actually intervening in the financial markets, or mostly in internet in exchange market, foreign currency exchange market. So there are many factors which are affected, and when we talk about balance of payment, actually balance of payment is the methodology in which we measure the effect of international financial transaction, because when we are purchasing from abroad and we are selling in abroad, and most of the time we are making many purchase of services, international services, many other things, or sale of services, many other things which are involved. So in this case we will see that what is the net amount of payment, what is the procedure, either we are paying more or whether we are collecting more. So that is called as balance of payment, which actually measure the net amount of payments which have to be done, or net amount of receipt which has to be collected from abroad. So this is the system of booking. This is actually a booking system for recording all receipts and payments that have a the direct bearing on the movement of funds between nation, because balance of payment is actually a movement of seeing the movement of transaction between different countries, and seeing that what is the net amount which has to be paid or collected from abroad. And actually it shows shows that how much country is receiving from abroad, and how much the country is paying abroad. We are talking discussing balance of payment. So there are many terms and concepts used in balance of payment. First of all, the current account, actually, which shows that international transaction which are that involve currently produced goods and services, like currently how much goods and services are being produced and how much transaction are being done between different countries, with your countries, with your country. And the trade balance is the part of this amount account and shows the difference between exports and imports. The trade balance shows that how much amount of trade is being done and how much amount of imports are being done and how much amount of exports are done, and what is the difference between the exports and imports. And if we have large amount of imports, then we can say that we are in trade deficit. But if exports are more than imports, then we can say that country are in surplus. That is a positive condition, but because it shows that we are receiving more than what we are paying to our trading partners. Another term which is actually related to a balance of payment is the capital account. And capital account is actually not actually associated with the trade, but it is associated with the net receipts from capital transaction. Like capital flows into a country are recorded as receipt, whereas outflows are registered at payment. When there are many sources of capital account, like many people are working abroad, and they are sending remittance, they are sending money to their family. So that is actually inflow of cash coming from abroad. But there are many people who are working in our country, and they are sending this amount to their home country. So that would be regarded as outflow of that capital. Many times when different countries invest, like for example FDIs actually are regarded as a good sign when people are investing in your country. So that is actually the capital which is coming within your country. But when the same when you are the country is the people of a country are investing abroad, so that is actually outflow of capital. So capital account is also very much important, because the country want to retain as much amount of money as possible within their country. And when there is excessive outflow of cash, that will create shortage of capital within our country. And inflow of capital is also very much important, because these inflow of cash are important for the country, because it will help in the like if it is an investment, so obviously it will take part in the development of that country by producing goods and services. And if it is coming as a money which are being paid which are being sent it to the families by the people who are working abroad, it is also very good, because it can be used for consumption and saving as well. So capital account is also an important component of balance of payment. So, based upon these definitions, one we can make an equation that when there is a difference between when there are current account plus capital account, actually show the collection of capital and current account shows the net change in the government international reserves. So that's why we can say that it's an important component, and which can make a valuable contribution in the concept of international reserves. Now, there are different exchange rate regime. We'll be discussing the historical background of this exchange rate regime and the system which is actually internationally now operating. So there are two basic type of exchange rate regime in the international financial system. First one is fixed exchange rate regime. This is actually exchange rate system in which a currency is pegged to any currency, any one currency or a basket of currencies, and the currency with which we are associated is actually pegged with, or which has actually certain amount of money, a certain amount of value which is associated with gold or any other precious metal. Then another regime is your floating exchange rate regime or flexible exchange rate regime, in which you don't have to peg your currency to any one currency or a basket of currency, but you have to maintain, you have to calculate exchange rate with each and every country based upon daily changes, daily demand and supply of the currency. Nowadays this floating exchange regime is applicable all over the world. In a fixed rate regime, the values of the currency are kept pegged relative to one currency so that exchange rate are fixed. That means that in the previous period, up till 1971-72, the currencies, all of the world currencies were pegged against dollar, and dollar is actually has a value which is associated with gold. So in this system, you have to maintain you have to see that how that your currency is associated with dollars, and any change in dollar will have an impact on your currency. But the currency against which the other currency are pegged is known as anchor currency. So at that time, dollar was called as anchor currency because majority of currencies are fixed against that against a dollar. Then have a floating exchange rate regime. In the floating exchange regime, the values of currencies are allowed to fluctuate against one another. As nowadays, we can see that we have to calculate our exchange rate with each and every currency, because we have nowadays floating exchange rate regime applicable. When countries attempt to influence exchange rate by buying and selling currencies, the regime is referred to as managed float regime or dirty float. But there are certain practices in which the countries impact their exchange rate by selling or buying certain currencies. So in this case, that is called as managed float regime or dirty float. Then if we look into the background of fixed rate system, in 1944, Bretton Woods, the International Monetary Fund or IMF was formed, which sets rules and procedures, provides loan to deficit country, because at that time the Second World War is about to end, and there was lot of destruction all over Europe, and they don't want to fight anymore because it has destroyed the economies of majority of the countries. So that time they advise and they discuss and they decide that we should have to collaborate in different activities. That's why the IMF was formed, and there was another bank that is called as International Bank for Reconstruction and Development was formed, which is now converted to World Bank nowadays, which provide loans to developing countries. At that time, it was decided that it will provide loans to developing countries, but that was a time where majority of the European countries were due to war comes in the category of developing country, because majority of their infrastructure were destroyed due to war, and they were not in a very healthy economic conditions. So these bodies were formed. UNO was also formed at that time in order to increase the collaboration and coordination between countries, and decrease and reconstruct the infrastructure in order to improve their economy. Then in Bretton Woods, the US emerged from World War II as the world leaders, largest economic power, because at that time majority of European countries were destroyed, but there was very less destruction in US, and US were emerge as a leader of the of economic leader of that area of that time period. So the US dollar was called the reserve currency, meaning it was used by other currency to dominate the asset they held in the international reserve. And obviously when the people are willing to kept their currency in the form of dollars. So the demand for dollar increased, and its values also increases. And as we have discussed, that at that time fixed rate regime was formed, in which the countries pegged their currencies with the dollar. But this system was abandoned in 1974 because it created problem for US due to increased development in Japan and many other countries, because majority of country has now emerged in the European areas as well. So it and dollars could not be increased, or they could not be they could not issue dollars, because they have to keep certain amount of gold against that, and all the currencies are fixed with dollar. So that time President Nixon was decided that we should abolish this system, and we should start floating exchange rate system. So even post 1971, the dollar was the reverse currency in which most international financial transactions were conducted. But as we will see that the Europe was challenged that status. Now, as this suggests that nowadays also dollar is many transaction is being used, and mostly it is a reserve currency. But the introduction of euro has made potential threat to dollar, and a lot of transaction and majority of the European countries have adopted euro, so it has threatened the status of dollars nowadays. Now, as we have discussed different aspects of balance of payments and the different regimes of exchange rates, another important factor is that the countries should control the flight of capital, and they should retain as much possible as much capital as possible. But it actually depends upon the nature of the economy, and so the countries should control the capital outflow. And the capital outflow is the when people are sending more and more money to abroad, so it can has a potential threat to the country. So control on outflow are likely to work, because as we control our capital, we can restrict the capital which is going out of the country, which help to retain most of the capital within the country, and which it will helpful for the economic development. Then seldom effective during a crisis, but at the time when there is a crisis, like it has in 1998, when our country conducted atomic bomb experiment, that came, they instantly freeze foreign currency account, which actually created a very uncertain situation within a country for the people who are holding foreign currency accounts. May actually increase the problem by leading an increase in capital flight. Like as the country is controlling the flight of capital, that create problem, and that create mistrust among the investor, the people who are potential investor in the foreign currency account in your country. So if you have you if you exercise strict control on the flight of capital, so people will avoid investing in your country, and try to invest their currency many other at any other place, or but it will also leads to illegal flight of capital. And or controls often lead to corruption, as I have said that if, when you put too much control on the flight of capital, it create problems, and it actually leads to corruption. Many government authorities into thinking that they don't need to make financial system reforms. There are many people, or there are many government authorities who thinks that these things should not be controlled or monitored very strictly, and most of the time it is in their own interest, because there are few government bodies or authorities which are involved in these kind of activities, so they will never they never want to have these kind of financial system reforms. As we have discussed, the control on capital outflow When we talk about control or inflow, it may have a very undesirable feature that they may block the funds from entering into a country that would be used for productive investment opportunities. And somewhat sometimes, like in the, like if you are seeing the FTF versions, and FTF has put Pakistan into a grey list because many fundings were coming within our country to support terrorists. So at that time we can say it would be supportive for controlling the crisis, but it can create problems when you want to use these funds which are coming within your country for productive use. And also they can limit the fuel supply to lending booms through capital flow. Over time, they produce a substantial distortion and misallocation of resources as household and business try to get around them. And they can also lead to corruption, because when people are not finding a right way or a legal way for getting the amount of money from abroad, so they will use, and they will become compelled to use illegal ways, which will increase the corruption. On the other hand, there is a strong case for improving bank regulation and supervision so that capital inflow are less likely to produce a leading boom and encourage excessive risk taking by banking institution. For example, restricting bank in how fast their borrowing can grow might substantially limit capital inflow. Supervisory controls that focus on the sources of financial fragility rather than symptom can enhance the efficiency of the financial system rather than hampering it.